You're listening to EMF. A-N. Welcome to the official podcast for the EMF Action Network, and you're listening to podcast number 4. The EMF Action Network is an organization dedicated to providing discussion on topics concerning the overgrown spread of wireless technology in our lives and how it affects our well-being. Each show features different guests and is distributed primarily through podcasts on iTunes and YouTube. Each podcast presents different guests who present their point of view and stories concerning the exorbitant expansion of wireless technology in our culture. Topics include electromagnetic hypersensitivity, mobile or cellular phone dangers, Wi-Fi usage, smart meter concerns, cell tower hazards, health concerns on EMF or microwave radiation, and more. And our guest today is Desiree Jaworksi. Desiree is the Executive Director for the Center for Safer Wireless, which has a mission statement to enhance public understanding of wireless technology and products. So, Desiree, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much.
Great. So, I guess the first question would be, what was it that brought about the start of the Center for Safer Wireless?
Well, in 2009, a woman by the name of Christine Hoke decided to create this organization, and she did so because she had been experiencing severe headaches, and she had never had headaches like this before, and she didn't know what was going on. She was going to the doctors, and they, one after another, told her, well, she was just going to have to go on medicine for these headaches, and she just couldn't believe that she would need this at this point in her life. And so she started to research it, and she realized that there were other people out there who suffered from headaches that were caused by wireless radiation. And so she had realized that her husband had just installed a wireless router in their home, and she also had been using her cell phone quite a bit. And in thinking about it, she realized that a lot of her headaches came after she used her cell phone and also when she was near the router. So looking into all this research, she came up with the conclusion that was the problem. She turned it off, stopped using her cell phone, and lo and behold, her headaches went away. And so then she said, well, I have to get this information out to other people because I'm sure I'm not alone with this. So that's why she founded the organization, the Center for Safer Wireless. And then she was the executive director for about 3 years, and then she had to move out of that position for some personal reasons, but she continues to be involved and is the treasurer of the organization. And then I had been involved with the organization for about 2 years prior to that, and I was on the board of directors, and then I took over the position of executive director after she vacated it. And one of the reasons why I got involved in the organization was because I was experiencing insomnia, really, really severe insomnia. I could only sleep like 2 hours a night, and this went on for months, and I had no idea what was going on with me, and I mentioned it to a friend of mine who then told me about another person that she knew who had experienced insomnia like this also, and they had had the Center for Safer Wireless come in and do a home radiation assessment. And so after this assessment was done and some changes were made, the person didn't have insomnia anymore. And I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy. I never heard of such a thing. And so anyway, I decided to look into it a little bit, and as I was going on the internet and studying about radio frequency radiation and health effects, I saw that there was a problem that many people were describing of insomnia from being exposed to routers, cell phones, and everything else. So I thought, gee, well, I'll have them come in and do an assessment. So Christine Hoke actually was the one who came in and did my assessment. And I immediately made some changes that she suggested, and within 6 weeks, I was sleeping again.
Was
And
there
so,
was there any particular change that you think was very significant that was made?
oh yes, yes, there were two very significant changes. One was that I had a cordless phone that was a DECT, and what that means is that the base of that phone functions as a cell antenna, and so it emits radio frequency radiation 24/7. And whether you're on your phone or not, it's always emitting this. And that was right underneath my bedroom. And then I had just recently, probably like 6 months ago, installed a wireless router. And prior to that, I had been, all with wires and corded with Ethernet. And so, anyway, I with that router, that was right next to my bedroom, and also I had it right next to my monitor. So I had realized it when I was on the computer and I was working at night, that I would feel odd when I got off of it, and I felt that something was strange, but it never entered my mind that it could be the router that was causing these problems. So anyway, after Christine came through, and like I say, the router, I moved far away. I actually connected my computer with a cable to the router, and so I could use the computer without the router being on. And then like I said, I got rid of the cordless phone. I also had a tremendous amount of dirty electricity, which is harmonics on our wiring, and that was very high in my house. And so we installed filters that would help reduce that. And so I reduced that from a level of about 2,000 that we used a Stetzer meter, dirty electricity meter, and it was literally, a lot of my rooms were like 2,000 or more. And after we installed the filters, it dropped down to a level of 50 or less.
Right.
So that was huge. So we went through and we did all of that, and then I was able to sleep. And I say, it took about 6 weeks. And so then I was like, whoa. And in addition to that, and this was just really something I didn't even expect, my family had been very unhealthy. My son, who was like 3 years old at the time, was always having ear infections, always going on antibiotics. My daughter was always having sinus infections. She was like 9 years old. And, I mean, forever she had sinus infections. Every cold I ever got turned into bronchitis. I was on antibiotics. I mean, we were a family that lived on antibiotics. And so after these changes, and my husband also was sick frequently with sinus infections. So after I made all these changes, my son never had another ear infection, ever.
Wow.
And my daughter's sinus infections went away. The colds, even though we would get a cold, they would only last for like a week. Typical how you would imagine a cold being, not turning into like these 3 weeks of, very sick people until these colds were cured by antibiotics. So anyway, after we did all this, we were so healthy, and no one was sick at all for like a whole year. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. So I know all this was having a huge impact on my family. And I just know it. And so I felt a real need to go out and tell other people about what happened to us and what this is doing to them, all this wireless radiation. And so and that's why I got into the Center for Safer Wireless, and why I had to take over the executive director's position when Christine left, because I couldn't let this organization go away. It's too important.
Yeah, wow. I mean, you mentioned a whole bunch of great things right there. Certainly, I mean, right at the beginning with DECT phones, DECT phones, which are constantly transmitting. And it's, as you suggested, it's like having a cell tower inside your house. The old-fashioned types of cordless phones did not transmit all the time. They only transmit when they were actually in use for the most part.
Right.
So that's I think that's DECT phones I think are more dangerous than having actually a cell phone in your house.
I agree.
And
I totally agree. I mean, I use corded phones, and anytime I do a home assessment for anyone, I always recommend they go back to corded phones. It's really the safest way of using a phone. I mean, cordless phones are exactly like a cell phone in the way they use the radio frequency radiation. I mean, it's the same frequencies. You know, maybe it's not as strong, but it's, you know, it's the same type of radiation.
Right.
And so it's really the safest way of talking on the phone is having a landline and using a corded phone.
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
I think it's so important. You know, my understanding is in Europe, when people purchase these DEC phones, that they actually have made them so that the base doesn't emit radiation all the time.
I've heard that too.
Yeah,
In some
but they make
areas,
two different
yes.
types. One for us and one for them. So I don't know. I don't understand, you know, why that is. I don't know. Maybe it's probably cheaper to do it without turning off the radiation, and that's why we get that version.
Yeah.
But I can't say that for sure. It's just my hypothesis. But
Yeah,
anyway,
many of these topics that you brought up, you know, I've heard before by Dr. Meg DeHavis up in Ontario, who has done a lot of good work on these issues, and you know, is very much against DEC phones, and you mentioned I think the Stetzer meters as well, and she strongly supports those too, in terms of reducing, as you say, dirty electricity. But yes, it's certainly interesting, you know, in terms of how when you reduce the amount of not only dirty electricity but the microwave radiation in your home, you know, how all those infections went away, and how
yeah.
everyone became healthier.
Well, you know, more and more studies are showing how this wireless radiation puts a stressor on our cells and stresses our bodies. And so, it causes our immune system to be on all the time, you know, dealing with this. And then when you add in another disease of any type or any other toxin, it's harder for your body to fight that.
Right.
And it just weakens your whole system. And so that's happening, I think, with everybody throughout the country at this point.
And certainly
because
when you
it's everywhere.
Right, and certainly when you have insomnia, you know, that will lead to obviously a less lengthy amount of sleep each night, you know, which will make your body more prone to infection.
Oh, definitely. I mean, now I do have to say I was the one who suffered the insomnia. The kids didn't seem to, and my husband didn't seem to have that either. The way I did, my son wasn't a very good sleeper, but then he had these ear infections. Like I'm telling you, so frequently, it was like he either had a cold or an ear infection. You know, it's like the cold always led to the ear infection, and then before you know it, he'd have another cold. So, that was tough with him. But, you know, like I say, I was the one who was just so impacted by it. And I think I may be, you know, more sensitive to it than other people, but I'm certainly not electro-hypersensitive. I think, like, when I had that router next to my monitor, I kind of would feel my face flush from it. I would feel heat from it, but it really didn't connect in my brain why I was feeling that. Yeah, but I don't think that everybody would feel that, you know, the way I did. And then there's others, of course, now I know who feel it much more than what I do. I mean, there are people who suffer greatly with this.
Yeah, you're based in, as you mentioned, in the Arlington, Virginia area.
Right.
There are people that have to move to the National Radio Quiet Zone, which
Right.
is not too far away over in West Virginia, in Greenbank. And those people are hypersensitive, and
Yeah.
have to reduce their exposure as much as is practically possible. So, in regards to electro hypersensitivity, or as I refer to it as EHS, how does your organization go about helping people that have any type of sensitivity to wireless radiation?
Well, one of the things that we do is, of course, we have our website, and we have information on our website that people can look at, you know, concerning this and what the symptoms are. And then we do put out a newsletter that at times we touch upon that topic. But really, a lot of times what I get are just the phone calls of people looking for help, or emails of people who have these symptoms and they don't know why, and they think they're losing their mind. I mean, I've had people who call me and say, I think I'm insane. Please tell me if I'm insane or not. But, every time I go past a cell tower, I get like a stabbing pain in my brain. And it doesn't seem like anybody else does. And then when I tell people, they think I'm like nuts, or my face flushes, or I get headaches. I mean, I hear this from people all the time, and it's like I have to reassure them that no, you're not nuts. There's actually a growing group of people who are experiencing these symptoms. And so we will talk about it, and I'll make them understand that there are ways that they can help themselves. And one of the biggest things you can do is make your home your safe haven. And one of the things that we do on our site is offer links to products that people can use, and they can purchase these, and they can use them to shield themselves from all of this radio frequency radiation. And so anyway, what I'll do is guide them as to what they can do to help themselves in their homes. If they are local, then I will go and I will do an assessment on their house if they want that. We charge for that, but if I go there, I have various meters that I use, and I can pinpoint, where the problem is, and then we can go from there and make improvements to their environment. What's really interesting is how many times people who are truly electrohypersensitive, I mean, by truly I mean extremely electrohypersensitive, they function just as the meter does. I mean, they know the bad spots in their homes. They know in their yards where they feel unwell. And when I go to these spots with them with my meter, the one that I have for the radio frequency radiation, the wireless radiation, you can just watch it go up, and you'll see the increasing amount of the wireless radiation where they feel uncomfortable, and then they feel better when they get away from it, and you'll just watch the needle go down. I mean, it is amazing. It's absolutely amazing to see. And I always feel, if more people could see this, and actually I think one of the things I'd like to do eventually is get a videotape of this, but if more people could see this, they would realize that this is a real problem for these people, and it's just horrible. So anyway, but one of the things that I like to do is first start with their bedroom and see what we can do to eliminate any radiation, or wireless radiation coming into that. We can put film up on the windows that can stop some of it from coming through. If there's a lot coming through the walls, there's actually paint that you can use to put on the walls that will stop it from coming through. It will absorb it. There's material that you can put up in your attic that can stop the radiation from coming through. So there's a lot of things that we can do to, at the very least, make your bedroom good and safe for you. And then if you can have a good night's rest and let your body rejuvenate, let your cells heal from the abuse they take during the day, it gives you more strength to handle the exposure when you leave your bedroom and you leave your house. So, and so that's just, and then also what we check for, of course, is when I go and do assessments for these people's homes, is dirty electricity. And some of them are very sensitive to that as well. And, we can put the filters in to help reduce that. But what I have found with some electrohypersensitive people is that they can't even handle the filters going in. They can deal with the dirty electricity more than the filters. So it depends on what frequencies bother them. It's really very interesting. And they know immediately. If I put filters, and I always take a few, so I can put them in the room so the person can really get a good sensation of what it's going to be like in the room with them. And some of them would take them out. Oh, just take them out. They're really bothering me. And it's like, whoa. And others will be like, oh, this is wonderful. It's just peaceful.
Oh, that's really interesting.
It really, really is. It's amazing. Amazing. And, I just feel so sorry for these people because they're just being inundated with this toxin, and it's so hard for them to live their lives.
I think what might actually be happening in terms of those filters is one thing that I've noticed myself is when there's a significant change in the type of radiation that they're exposed to, your system is shocked at that point, and you're in a matter of speaking, and it takes a while for you to adjust to the change, even though the change might actually be more of a positive one in the end.
Is that right?
Yeah, well, I noticed that like myself, just from my own personal experience. But you mentioned one thing about improving awareness. Do you find, or what do you think has been the most significant progress, if anything, maybe even in the past 5 years, on improving awareness of dangerous levels of wireless radiation or EHS?
Well, I think what is happening is there are organizations like mine popping up everywhere on the internet, which is really great because anytime anyone does a search about this, you see all these organizations and all with their information about it. Some of it overlapping, some of it different, but people can really see that there's a whole bunch of us who are concerned about it. And also, I think that there's been a lot of really good studies that are coming out showing how it impacts our cells, and I think that's really important. That there's sites to go to see these studies, like justproveit.org. I mean, that has like 5,000 different studies on it. Some of them say there is no problem, and others say there is. But I mean, you can go to these sources now and see all of this, and so that really adds validity to what we're saying. And I think that's all important. And I think that we are. I think that as more people are feeling the impacts of this too, this is causing them to get more involved with organizations like mine too. And so we kind of have this whole grassroots effort going on here, and I think it's going to grow. And I've seen, like I say, a tremendous growth over the last 5 years since I've been involved. Just in our little area here in Washington, D.C., we now have like 5 groups that are like specialized. We're not a specialized group. We kind of touch upon everything. But there's a group that just is dealing with the Wi-Fi in schools and the iPad initiatives that are going on in schools. Right. And then there's another group that's just dealing with the smart meters, and that goes on. So we have all these different groups that are popping up with people who care enough to be involved. And our listservs are growing. The hits on the websites are huge, just huge. I get like 1,000, people looking at my website a month. And then we have the Facebook accounts and the Pinterest accounts. And, they're getting action, and we're getting it out everywhere, and that's important. And then you're seeing more and more news articles about, the hazards of it too. Some of them come out and say there are no hazards. But, we have so much scientific evidence now to back us up when we make comments against these journalists who are saying that there's nothing wrong with this stuff. These people are crazy, and so I think that's really important too. And I think people are getting braver too. I mean, they're not afraid to say that this bothers them. I mean, there was a time that there was a real stigma attached to it, and I think that's changing. And that's really important because the people who are being affected the most need to speak up.
Yeah, and speaking of people being affected the most, you mentioned one thing in terms of iPads in schools, and to me that's really grotesque because you're putting all these Wi-Fi microwave radiation emitting devices in the hands of small children in schools. And if you have, say, a room full of even toddlers or 4 or 5-year-old children. You have 20 or 25 of them in a room, all with iPads emitting wireless radiation at the same time. I mean, my mind just goes crazy in terms of how much they're exposed to, given children's limited physical development.
Oh, absolutely. And no one's actually in there taking the readings.
Yeah.
No one.
No one has stepped up to do that on a national basis.
No, they're just not doing that. They're just letting it happen, and we know that when all those iPads are downloading all that data, the wireless radiation is just sky high. And like you said, these little developing bodies are being exposed to this. I mean, we know that high power lines can cause leukemia in some children. And science has also shown that these children who grow up under these high power lines tend to have cancer at an earlier age than the general public does. And so here we are exposing such a huge amount of our children, the nation's children, to this type of radiation. I mean, are we going to end up with leukemia, a huge amount of it?
Or
because
autism.
We're having full body exposure from a type of electromagnetic field. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what will be, but it's a scary thought, and I think that they're not taking any precautions they need to.
Some precautions, fortunately, on the international level, are being made. Certainly in Sweden, where EHS is recognized as a official condition and disability. But you move over to France, and they have actually banned Wi-Fi in schools with small children.
Yeah, they have. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of countries are doing things like that. Spain has done something similar. It's just throughout the world they are. As the other places are starting to pull it out, we're putting it in. And we're putting it in everywhere here in the United States. And that's just a huge mistake. I mean, they certainly could wire these computers. And personally, I don't see any need to have an iPad in every child's hand. I would rather have them interacting with their teachers and looking at books versus looking at those screens. And I can tell you personally, one major concern with these screens is headaches. Mm-hmm. My own son, who is now 9 years old, when he looks at a screen, like an iPad screen or a tablet screen, for any length of time, he gets headaches. Really, really bad headaches. And they can actually lead to migraines. And it's just my luck that would be my child. But anyway, it's like a poor thing. I mean, I feel horrible for it. So his screen time is extremely limited. I mean, he does have a 3DS. We really, we don't use a tablet particularly around here in my house. But he can use that, but he can use it for 15 minutes, and he has to take a 5-minute break, then he can use it for 10 minutes. That's it for the day. Because if he uses it too much more than that, he gets a headache, and he cannot use a computer screen. The computer screen always leads to a bad headache for him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I wonder how many other children are going to experience this. I'm sure he's not the only one. And are they going to know that it's because of that, or are they just going to think all these kids are having headaches, for like some bizarre reason? I don't know. But anyway, that's just one side of it, but the fact that their whole body is being exposed to this. And the parents have no say to say that they don't want it. That is a real problem for me, too. I mean, anyone should think that they have the right to irradiate my child. I mean, where does this come from in this country?
There's no precedent in terms of, what's appropriate.
Oh, my gosh. With any other toxin, of course, our country doesn't recognize this in any form as being a toxin. But with any other type of toxin, whether it's cigarette smoke or exhaust fumes or DDT, pesticides, GMOs, I mean, I do not have to have my child exposed to that. I can do things to make sure that doesn't happen. But here, the school system has decided that this is okay to expose my child to. And that just blows my mind. And it really makes me angry. And I have done as much as I can, just in our school system here, in trying to educate the board, the school board, and other people about these problems. But it's like falling on deaf ears. It's like, well, our country says it's okay. Show me where the FCC says it's a problem. It's like,
even when you look at your cell phone user manual, it will say in the user manual to hold it at least a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch away from your head.
Yeah, it does. And the same with iPads or any tablet. They say to keep it at minimum 8 inches from your body.
8 inches. And how do you do that if you're touching it all the time? I don't.
I know. These kids just sit there with it in their laps. And that was one of the things that I really wanted the school system to do, is if we have to have it, at least use it according to the instructions. And the instructions, they're not a toy. They were never really designed for children. And they should not. They should be minimum 8 inches away from their bodies. I mean, it's just, and, they should be held in a particular way so that the antennas aren't putting out more radio frequency radiation than what, you should be exposed to. But the school systems aren't doing, at least my school system is doing nothing about that. Now, evidently, there was a school system up in Massachusetts that, Ashland, Massachusetts, they went and they put safety protocols for the teachers to use when the children are given the tablets. And, at least they're adhering to those different rules, like keeping it off their bodies, 8 inches away, use them in airplane mode, don't hold them when you're downloading. All this common sense. It's just common sense stuff. And they're doing that, and it should be a mandate that comes, right through the Department of Education. That all these school systems should, at the very least, follow the instructions that are in the tablets themselves.
Yes.
And that's not even happening. So it's a scary situation, and it worries me very much about what's going to happen 5 years from now to these kids, where they'll be with their health. It's a real issue, and I don't know. We just keep plugging away, and we've been, my organization, myself, I have been meeting with different political candidates and talking to them about the need to have this whole
What do you
regulation.
think they can do? What do you think they can do?
I want them to take this wireless regulation from the FCC and give it to the EPA. That's who it should be with. Because the EPA is the one who cares about the environment. They're the one who cares about the pollution. And this is electrosmog pollution, and that's who should be dealing with this. Not the FCC, who is there to promote the telecommunication businesses.
Yeah, their health data is so outdated in terms of they look at the amount of heat that is being produced from microwave radiation, and that's why there's a maximum SAR absorption rating that a cell phone can emit, and it's based on thermal effects. It's not based on other general health effects that you see from these other types of problems.
Right. That's it, and we know that's outdated. That's from 1996 when that was looked at, and when they even came up with that SAR, they never, at that point in time, envisioned that we would have in one room cell phones, tablets, routers, laptops,
Text phones constantly transmitting.
Yeah, all transmitting at once. I mean, there's no one who's even evaluating what impact all of those devices. Just imagine a college dorm room. Just imagine all these devices going on at once, and the any kind of duck phone, cordless phone, and all this going on at once. What this is doing to the people's bodies. I mean, we know it's doing something to them. I mean, they've shown that definitely the metabolism of the brain increases when you're using a phone. We know that increases the glucose in the brain when you're using the cell phone, as well as the cordless phone. I mean, we know that this is happening, and it's like, well, but does that mean anything bad? Well, it means, originally they told us it has no impact on our bodies, and here we show that it definitely has an impact on our body. So, I mean, and they also use all this wireless radiation to help heal bones, and they're doing a lot of things with it in the medical profession to heal people. So we know it does a lot to the body, and we're not putting forth any types of rules saying just what we're going to allow people to be subjected to.
Well, fortunately, one of the issues that exists is that there's very, as you're already aware, there's very little research that's going on to produce results that show that these problems exist. But fortunately, I have spoken to several people who have been on this show, actually, including Liz Barris, who is in California with working with a group called the People's Initiative, and among others, several other groups. And she's working to get electromagnetic hypersensitivity proven in a court of law.
Great.
And she has introduced me to several people that have been working with her in conjunction to that, including several medical professionals. And so that's wonderful. And I think that's going to be what it's going to take to move things forward, so to speak. Even though it's going to happen at a very, very slow pace, it's going to take longer than we ever dreamed.
Oh, yeah. Well, particularly because the 1996 Telecommunication Act, where they took away any of our rights to fight cell towers and any wireless radiation based on health. They right then and there they said that no one could use that as a basis for not having any of the wireless radiation in our environment. So that's very difficult to fight. I mean, I know I don't remember all the details of it specifically, but there's a case going on in the D.C. Federal courts about people who got brain tumors from cell phone use, but the only people who could sue based on that or the ones who are still alive and their families, and the ones who've died, are the ones who can sue from the use prior to 1996.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if it's after that, you can't go and sue and say that you got a brain tumor because of this cell phone use. So that 1996 act really made it difficult for the United States public to protect itself from this toxin.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah, but hopefully, more lawsuits. I mean, that's the way to get them, and get the attention too. Just like the city of Berkeley, they were able to pass that ordinance, the right to know ordinance.
yeah.
That was, that was fantastic. The first one in the country where if you go to purchase a cell phone, that the person who is selling it to you has to give you a slip of paper that says the city of Berkeley wants you to know. I can't remember the exact wording, but basically that you should not carry the cell phone, on your body, and you need to read your instructions in your phone. So,
and California, places in California, and California as a state has done so many other great things like that in terms of, leading the country, sometimes even kicking and screaming along the way to recognizing certain environmental problems. And,
yeah.
we might see, California do that again.
Yeah. Well, they did. Well, they did such a good job, getting this whole case together. They knew they were going to be sued by the telecommunication company, so they had all their, I's dotted and their T's crossed, and they just did a wonderful job being prepared for the lawsuit. And it really helped them too is that they did a survey of, I think, the people in that area. And I forget how many they surveyed, over 1,000 people, but it ended up at like 95% of those people did not know that the instructions of their cell phones tell them to not place it on their body. So that was wonderful that they did that, because they were able to show the judge why there was such a need for people to be made aware of this. And that's throughout the country. That's what's happening throughout the country. Nobody that I ever talked to who is just randomly walking past one of our exhibit booths knows that they should keep it off of their body. People who are involved in what we do, they all know that, but the general public doesn't. And when you inform them of that, they're like, get out, I didn't know that. Where do you find that at? Well, you have to go all the way through your cell phone so you get to this legal section. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But the one thing that I did notice when I got my new router from Verizon, they sent a piece of paper with it that said that it should be kept 8 inches away from your body.
The router.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was like, wow, and it was a separate sheet of paper. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know how many people notice that when they get that, but I was like, wow, because people will put those routers right next to their kids. They'll put it right next to your bed.
Yeah, don't put it next to your bed, for certain.
I know. So it shouldn't be anywhere near your bedroom. It should be turned off at night. I mean, the important thing is to turn this stuff off. When you go to sleep at night, everything needs to be off.
Well,
so you can have restful sleep.
Yeah, and a router, I don't know specifically, but I don't know if a router is always transmitting or not, like a DECT phone.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It transmits all the time. And it's very powerful because they're designed to fit any size home. So whether you live in a small one-bedroom apartment or a studio apartment, you're getting the same strength router as somebody who lives in a 4-bedroom house. So, and that's kind of crazy in itself. You should be able to reduce that power level.
Yeah, I think it's really grotesque that, like in my apartment building here, I'm looking at how many Wi-Fi routers my Mac computer is picking up right now. There's 1, 2, 3. It looks like almost 15 routers that it's picking up right now. And why can't there just be one router that is maybe managed by the apartment company? I don't know. Why does there have to be 15?
I don't know. There's no. Well, that goes back to these routers are much stronger than what you need. So one of the things that I recommend to people is, and this is a very simple thing that you can do, is you can take the antenna and just wrap aluminum foil around it, and that really reduces the power of the emission. And you can still, easily connect to it if you need to wirelessly, but that reduces it down considerably.
Hmm.
And then if you want to use it, you can just lift it off. If you need to use it at full power, you can lift it off. But you still need to turn it off at night. It's critical to turn these things off at night. Your cell phone should be a minimum, if you have to have it on, it should be a minimum 5 feet away from you. Certainly never sleep with it under your pillow. That's just totally bad news. And they've even had cell phones that have exploded. That doesn't happen often, very rarely, but literally have, for whatever reason, exploded, on people. And so you certainly don't want that under your pillow.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and so these are just those little things that you have to do. And now I know they even make a cover for routers that you can put on it to help reduce the emissions of the router. And so, like some of them, with Verizon, it's pretty easy to reduce it because they have just the antenna. But like Comcast, its unit, the antenna must be within the unit because it's just like a square router. So it's harder to cover that up if you want less strength. So these router protectors that they have, like less EMF, and you could even get this through our website. But anyway, you can cover these routers with them, and that helps really reduce the amount that you're exposed to during the day. But it still doesn't mean you shouldn't turn it off at night. Yeah, that's really critical.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
well, we're just about out of time here. So,
Okay.
just in closing, what is next for your organization at this point, and how can people get in touch with you and the Center for Safer Wireless?
Well, our website is on the internet, and we're the Center for Safer Wireless.us. So you certainly can go there and look for us. You can get in touch with me through email. I am D. Jaworski at centerforsaferwireless.us. If you do need to call me, my number is 703-909-9936. And what we're doing is we're just continuing in our outreach program. We're trying to get more funding. We want to do more educational campaigns. We'd like to do a YouTube video, something short and sweet and catchy that we could get the teenagers interested in so that they could be made aware of the dangers of putting these phones on their bodies, which all of them are doing almost.
Mm-hmm.
And so we think that there's really a critical need for that. So that would be the one big thing that I would really like to do. And the other things is to continue to meet with different politicians and talk to them about the need to transfer these regulations from the FCC to the EPA. That is just, once that occurred, then the EPA would have to take over the review of this, and there is no doubt they would have to change the way it's being done. And there is no doubt about that. I think that's really critical that happens. And really, that's the big things that we're doing. We continue to exhibit. We speak at different organizations, daycares, wellness groups, schools that invite us in. We put out our newsletter. We keep growing. We have our Pinterest account and our Facebook account, and we're just we keep moving forwards, and we keep gathering more people, and we keep educating. We're trying to form with a group, or we have formed like a coalition with the other groups in our area. So when we do want to have some type of special event, we're going to do it with all of the people who are part of our group so we can be bigger and louder. And another thing that we do is we do have movie nights about every 6 months, and we do a lot of advertising of this. And I have people who, come and watch our movies, and then we have a question and answer period. And that's been very popular, and now we're going to show Full Signal. That'll be our new one for this month. And that's a movie. It's been out for a long time, since 2010 it was made, but it's still a good movie and very relevant today. And there's just more, and it's about all the antennas, the cell antennas that are up, and how they've impacted people because of the antennas being near their homes, and it just goes into all of that. So it's a great movie about that, and it talks about how people have fought and won against having these antennas close to their homes. So that's what's on our agenda, and we're excited about it.
Great. All right, so great, Desiree. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Oh, and thank you. I think it's wonderful that you're doing this, Mark.
Great. And you've been listening to Desiree Jaworski with the Center for Safer Wireless.